We're such huge growth.
I have a question. Yep. Download it and then it opens like this.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was just trying to like.
Oh yeah. So okay. The software is built in Linux, so that's why it opens up this command window.
Got it.
And that's why it needs it to run the.
Okay. First, I downloaded like today. They posted one.
Yeah. Yeah, I just noticed that. I
posted it and then I downloaded it and then it came up like that. So maybe it just doesn't work.
Oh yeah.
So then I downloaded the other one, the one that you sent, like to go down to the other links.
Yeah.
Then the same things. I'm like, I guess that's
Oh yeah. It's because the software is built in Linux.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then I did it out there. Oh.
I've never been to
I was looking at it. We saw it in like. I was looking at it and I'm like,
and like the project.
yeah, I took the demo they have. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, it's 4 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing today? It's cold, yeah. It's surprising. I heard it was raining in LA, so that's the interesting thing. All right, so today is our SimVascular tutorial, and so this is our first day using the software. And so at the end of last week, I sent out instructions on how to download it, and so hopefully everyone was able to install. I didn't get any questions on that, so it seems like people were able to install just fine. But if you haven't installed the software yet, I would highly recommend that you do so because basically the final project is starting now, and so the final project that's I think a large part of everyone's grade. It basically starts today, and we're going to be working on throughout the whole semester. Okay, and so if you don't have your laptop on you today, I mean it's fine. I mean I'm not going to mark you down on it, but definitely take the time to go back and watch this tutorial. Just so that you can do it, because this tutorial is going to be part of your final project too. And so basically after we're done with this tutorial, I'm going to have you turn in the deliverables, as part of your final project. Because what I learned last year was that not everyone did the tutorial, and then it became very obvious on the final project when a lot of people were kind of screwed. And so I don't want that to happen again this semester. And so I'm going to have everyone turn the tutorial just to make sure that everyone does it. Okay. Okay, and so if you haven't already, you can go ahead and launch the software. And so if you were able to install it on your computer, the way you launch it is you go to your start menu and you go down to S, and you should have a folder here called SimVascular, and you just click on this SimVascular here. And so actually, let me go ahead and launch it just because there was a question before the class, okay? Or you can just type SimVascular. And so when you first launch SimVascular, it's going to launch this window right here, which is there's nothing to worry about it. It's not the matrix. No one's hacking your computer or anything. The reason we have this window here is because the software is primarily developed in Linux. And so it's not developed in Mac or Windows. And so, a lot of Linux softwares are, it has to launch this what's called a command prompt in order for it to run the software properly. So that's all that is. And so it just kind of runs in the background. You don't really notice it. You just kind of let it do its thing. Okay. All right. And so I'll give everyone a second to go ahead and launch the software. But in the meantime, are there any questions on anything I can answer? Yep.
2 questions. First one, you said last time that this software is not on the computers in here, right?
No, it's not.
Okay, and then how long will this be doing the whole class? They got like that in the last one.
Yes, it will be the whole. I mean, you're not turning anything at the end of class day, and so just use until your battery runs out, I guess. But it'll be so. I mean, the tutorial. I don't think I'm not going to have this due for another few weeks. Because I'm going to run through it kind of quickly in the class today. But when you're doing it for the first time, I want you guys to kind of really take your time with everything because there's quite a bit of steps and. You have to, I want to make sure you kind of get everything. So, it's not going to be due for a few weeks. And so don't worry about, finishing it up right now. But of course, everything that you do today is going to be beneficial for you down the road. Okay. And you had another question too?
And I was 2 questions.
Oh, the 2 questions? Oh, okay. Okay. I lost count. Okay. All right. And so if you're able to open up SimVascular, you should be able to see a screen that looks like this. And so this is the main screen here. Okay. And so the way SimVascular works is that, let me launch the website actually. I think that might be easier to see. Right. And by the way, everything that we're going over today is can be found on the website too. And so if you go to simvascular.org, all the tutorials that we're covering today is going to be covered by all of these links here. Okay. And so if you want to see a text version of what we're going to do, all that's available there for you. And there's a YouTube channel now too. And so if you go to the YouTube channel, there's video tutorials for everything that we're going to do today too, plus some extra stuff. And so you can go ahead and check that out as well. I think even I made a tutorial on here at some point. I forgot which one I made though, but anyway. Okay. And so let's go to getting started. Okay. And so here's the whole pipeline. And so basically the idea is that we're going to use SimVascular. We're going to load in some kind of medical images of a patient, right? So we talked about that the last couple of classes. Patients get CT scans, they get MRIs to be able to see their organs on the inside. And so we're going to load that into SimVascular. The next step is a step called path planning, where we're basically going to, from the image data, we're going to be able to see the blood vessels of this person. And we're going to need to be able to draw, or what we need to do is we need to draw out the centerline path for all these vessels. And so that's what you see here in this path planning window. Okay. Next, we're going to do a step called segmentation, where we basically ride along the centerline paths and we trace out what the cross-sectional area looks like for the vessels. Right. So that part's called segmentation. The next step is called modeling, and so this is the CAD portion of the software, where we basically take the segmentations and we connect them together. I call it like 3D connect the dots, although I'm the only one that likes that name. And so all my colleagues told me to stop doing that, but they're not here right now, so they can't chastise me. So I'm going to call it what I want. Okay. All right. And so that's the plan for today. And so today we're going to cover these 4 steps, and then later on in the semester, I think right after spring break, we're going to cover meshing and simulations. Okay. But today we're going to cover all the CAD portion. And so by the end of today, and by the time you finish this tutorial, you should basically have a CAD model or 3D geometry of the person's blood vessels. Okay. Okay. Any questions on that so far? Okay. All right. And so let's go back to SimVascular now. Right. And so the first step that we need to do is we need to create a project. And so a SimVascular project is basically the way that we're going to organize all the data that we're going to be producing in this, for this tutorial. And so to create a new project, you're going to go up to File, and then you're going to click on this button right here called Create SV Project. Okay. It's going to ask you where you want to save the project, and so you can go ahead and browse. I've already set this to where I want, but you can go ahead and set that to a convenient location on your computer, so wherever you want. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and cancel this, and you can go ahead and give this project a name. And so I'm going to give this the name called Modeling Tutorial, because we're basically doing a tutorial on how to do the modeling. But of course, you can call it whatever you want. Okay. All right. So once that's done, you can go ahead and click OK. And after you click OK, you should see that the list on the left here, the data manager, is now populated with all the steps that we're going to do. Okay. And so if you remember from the list that I showed you from the website, right, where we go image, path planning, segmentations, modeling, mesh simulation, we see the exact same kind of headings here. And so this kind of organizes your workflow as well. Okay. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to load in the image data. Okay. And so if you remember from the email I sent you last Friday, I also asked you to download the demo project, and so that's a zip file that's on the course website. And so was everyone able to find the demo project and download it onto their computer? Okay. All right. And so inside the demo project is a folder called Images. Okay. And inside the Images folder is a file which has the extension .vti. Okay, so this is basically someone's CT scan of their abdomen, basically. Okay, and so we're going to load this into SimVascular. All right. So the way that you load images is you're going to right-click on Images here. Oops. Right-click, and then you're going to click on Add Replace Image. Okay. And then you're going to navigate to the part of your computer where you have the image data. Okay, and so you can navigate to where you downloaded the demo project, and so you can double click on Demo Project. Inside Demo Project, there's another folder called SV Project, so I'm going to double click that, and then you're going to go ahead and double click on the folder called Images, and then you can go ahead and double click on the VTI file. Okay, and so when you do that, it's going to ask you if you want to save the project as a VTI file. So go ahead and click yes. Okay. Then the next prompt is going to come up to say, it's going to ask you if you want to scale the image. So you can go ahead and click yes. And then the last prompt is going to ask you for the scaling factor. You can just click OK. Right. All right, so we'll give it a name. We'll call it tutorial image. So basically, when prompts come up in SimVascular like this, you can just go ahead and click OK, because the default settings are going to work out well for what we're going to do. Okay.
Can I see how you do that again?
Yeah. All right, so to load the image, you can go right click on images right here. You're going to go add replace image. And then you're going to navigate to the place on your computer where you have the VTI file, which should be inside the demo project folder that I've uploaded onto Canvas. And then once you load the VTI file, you're just going to click OK to everything that pops up. Okay. Right. And so if you were able to load in the image data, you should be looking at this image right here. Okay. So remember what we talked about during the medical images lecture was that CT gives you a volumetric data set, right? So it's not just a 2D image of a person's insides. You know, it actually kind of gives you a box of data. Okay. And so what you're viewing here is three different perspectives on this image data. And so this top left one, this is the axial view. Okay. And so the way that you can interpret this is that you're looking at someone, basically if they're laying down flat on their head, you're looking at them from their head, looking down towards their feet. Okay. And if you have a mouse with a wheel, you can scroll up and down and you can move the slice up. Okay. You remember when we talked about medical images that, you know, when we store these CT scans, they're stored as slices, right? And so you can kind of see that here, where you can see if you move the mouse up and down, you can use the arrow keys too, or maybe you can't. I'm just kidding. Okay, and so you can scroll up and down on the mouse, and you can see as you scroll up and down, then this slice right here moves up and down. Okay. Right. And so I'm moving my my mouse wheel up, and so you can see that the slice here is moving up as well. Okay. And you can do the same thing for the other slices as well. Okay. All right. So this is viewing the person kind of from the top of their head down. Next is the sagittal plane, and so the sagittal plane looks at the person from their sides, and so if a person standing like from the side like this, you're viewing them from their left shoulder to the right, or the right shoulder to the left. Okay. And then last is the coronal plane, and so the coronal plane is a slice as if you were kind of looking at the person straight on, and there is a slice that kind of cuts them, up and down like that. Okay. Right, and then together, all three planes kind of make the medical image data just like this. Okay. Right, and so you're viewing basically the CT scan of a real person's insides. And so this person, even though I've never met this person, but he's been used for probably hundreds of SimVascular tutorials up to this point. So his data has contributed to science quite a bit. And he's probably not even dead yet, or I hope he's not dead, or I don't even know. I shouldn't say anything. Okay, so is everyone able to load the image data, and were you able to kind of scroll through the images? Right. Right, and so in case you're wondering what the mouse controls are, and if you have a mouse, it works a lot better. And so because what you can do, because the mouse wheel actually uses quite a bit, and so if you go to the 3D view right here, and you can maximize any of these views by clicking on this arrow, this box right here. Okay, and so if I want to maximize the 3D view, I can click on this box. Okay, and then it's going to maximize those three. And so if you left click with your mouse, you can see that I'm kind of rotating the image data around. Okay, and so that's left click. If you right click and you move your mouse up and down, that's going to be zoom. Okay. And then if you want to pan left and right. The way you do that is you hold down the middle click, and so if you have a mouse wheel on your mouse, you hold down that mouse wheel and you kind of drag it left and right, and then you can pan the image, to the left and right. Okay. It's a little bit disorienting, especially if you're coming from SolidWorks and you're kind of used to the controls in SolidWorks. It is a bit different than that. But once you kind of use it for a bit, then you'll get used to it. Okay. Okay. And so that's loading the image data, right? And so now that we have the image data in, our next step is going to be to create paths. Okay. And so paths, I think, are probably the most difficult part of the whole process, because in order to make a good path, you have to kind of know what you're looking for, right? In other words, you have to know what the blood vessels are looking like in your image data. Okay. And so in our image data here, which is the of a person's aorta, this person had some dye injected into them. So they had some kind of iodine or something injected into their blood vessels. And so when they x-rayed them, then all the blood vessels would show up very bright in image data. Okay? And so let me go ahead and move this. Okay. And so basically what you can say then is that anything that appears kind of bright white in the image data, that's going to be a blood vessel of yours. Okay. And so this white circle right here, this is one of our blood vessels. Okay. But we're viewing the blood vessel from the kind of from its cross section. So that's why it's circular. Okay. If you look at the same blood vessel from a different angle, right? And so if you know, let's say we look at it from the side, okay, you can see kind of the full length of this blood vessel, right? And so this blood vessel kind of runs, and so this is the aorta. And so the aorta basically runs kind of vertically from the middle of your chest down to your legs, basically. Okay. And this image data kind of covers that entire part of that body from your chest to your legs. Right? And so you can see the blood vessel kind of runs vertically down just like that. Okay. All right, and so what we're going to do at this point is we're going to draw a path down the middle of this blood vessel so that we can basically identify where that is. Okay, and you can view it in the frontal plane too. So if you kind of scroll left and right, you can see that it's the blood vessels kind of running up and down just like that. Okay. All right. And so I think kind of the most difficult thing for most people when they first start using SimVascular is the whole spatial spatial awareness. And so just kind of getting used to 3 different views right here and knowing what they represent on the patient and where where it is. I think that's going to be the most difficult part, for people that are new to the software. Okay. And so let's go ahead and start constructing this path. And so to make a new path, we're going to go to the left side of the screen right here. We're going to right click on paths. Paths. And then after you right click on paths, you're going to click on this button right here for create a new path. Okay. So let's go ahead and create that. And then after you click on create a new path, then a new window is going to pop up where it's going to ask you to give it a name. Okay. And so since this path right here is going to be for the aorta, okay, so basically I know that that's the name of the blood vessel that we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and name this path after that blood vessel. And so I'm going to go ahead and name this path aorta. Right? Typically, this is good practice. And so if you name your paths after your blood vessels, it makes them pretty easy to identify later. But what I see a lot of people do, especially when they're first starting out, is they name their path something like path 1, and they name their second path path 2, and the third path 3, right? You can do that if you really know what you're doing. But I wouldn't recommend it because, for this tutorial, we're only going to do 2 paths. But for for the more complex vessels, you're going to have like dozens of paths that you're going to generate. And so, naming your paths 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 24 makes it really difficult to keep track of what's going on. And so, I would recommend that you name it after the blood vessel that you're actually trying to model, just so that it just makes it easier for you to organize. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and name this aorta. You can keep the other settings the same. And so the default settings for this are just fine. Okay. All right, and so after you create the new path, you can see we have a path here called aorta. And so to open up the path planning window, you can go ahead and double click on this. Okay. And then after you double click on it, then a new window is gonna show up here on the right. And so we actually don't need that much space on that window. And so you can, yours might come out just like this, but we don't need that much space. And so you can kind of minimize it by clicking and dragging the window to the right like that. Okay. All right, any questions on this so far? Okay. Okay, and so we're gonna go ahead and draw this path. And so we're gonna start at the beginning of the blood vessel and then work our way down to the bottom. And so for this particular blood vessel right here, we, it actually starts at the very top of the image data. And so we're gonna move this axial plane up to the top. And so if you go to the bottom left of the screen, right, you'll see that there's a window here called an image navigator. And so the image navigator allows you to move the different slices in the image data up and down as you see fit. Okay. And so for this tutorial, I'm going to move the axial plane all the way up to the top. And so for this slider bar here, for axial, I'm going to go ahead and slide that all the way to the right. Okay. And so by doing so, you can see in the 3D view that our red plane right here, which is our axial plane, is all the way at the top of the image data. Okay. Okay. And so it's a little bit hard to see, but if you were looking at the if you're looking at this cross section as we were going up, then you can see that this slice right here, this kind of dim slice, this is our aorta. Okay. Okay. And so that's the blood vessel that we're going to model. Okay. I wrote it and then I erased it. And so when you're making path points like this, the best way to put path points is to use one of the 3 views that has a nice cross-sectional view of your blood vessel, right? And so you don't want to be working in this frame right here, because in this frame you're kind of viewing the vessel from the side. Okay. You want to be viewing the plane where the vessel is kind of perpendicular to the plane that you're viewing, and so you want to get a view where the vessel appears as circular as possible. And you don't want to be working in these ones at all, okay? Because what we're going to do is we're going to be dropping points down. And so we're going to be kind of doing reverse connect the dots. And so we're going to be placing the points down along the vessel. And then the software is going to connect those dots smartly to create our centerline path. Okay? All right, so let me drop a couple just so you can see. And so for now, if you're following along in the software, I would say just kind of, you're just going to watch what I'm doing first, and then I'll let you go ahead and do the rest of it. Okay? So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to actually move this down a little bit because this cross section here is a little bit cut off, and so I'm going to move this down until I can see a very nice kind of cross sectional view of this vessel right here. Okay. Right, and so I started up here where this cross section was kind of cut off, and so I scrolled down a bit until I was able to see the full vessel, right? And so this is a good part to this is a good view to start with. Okay. And so once you have a good view of the vessel, you're going to use the left click on your mouse, and so you're going to left click in the middle of the vessel, okay, or as close to the middle as you can, and you can zoom in if you want to help you get to the middle. Okay. And so the crosshair should be right in the middle of the vessel, and then once you do that, you're going to go ahead and click Add. And that's going to add a path point for you, okay? And so after you click Add, you should see this big chunker of a block here on the 3D view, okay? And so that's your first path point. And so from here, we're going to place another path point, okay? But the second path point has to be further down the vessel. And so I'm going to go ahead and scroll down on this view right here. And so I'm just going to use my mouse. But if you don't have a mouse wheel, you can also use the slider here, okay? And so you can see here that we're in slice 487. Okay. Eventually, we're going to go down to the bottom. And so I'm going to go ahead and move this down by about, let's say, 25. And so maybe we'll do this in slice 462. Okay. Right. And if you view on the 3D view, you can see the slice has moved down a bit, and so has the cross section. And so now that the cross section is moved, I'm going to click and put the crosshair there. And I'm going to add another point right there as well. Okay. Okay. Right. So so I move axial down. And so my axial plane started at 487. Okay. And so at 487, then the path point that I put was right in the middle of this vessel. And then I basically want to follow the vessel down the length of the vessel. And so I'm going to move the axial plane down. And so I changed this 487 here to 462. And so that changed the location of the plane down. So I placed another point right there. And now those 2 points that I placed are connected by a line. Yeah. Yeah. And so if you want to see your path, I don't know why this is the default. It's really obnoxious how big these are. And so if you want to change this, you can right click on path right here. Okay. And then you're going to go down to the setting right here called point 3D size. Okay. And so you can see the default size for the 3D points is 1. And so let me go ahead and reduce this by a factor of 10. Okay. And so I changed that to 0.1. And then when I come back to the 3D view right here, you can see that I have two points right here. Okay. Right. And so this upper point was the first path point that I put, and the second point down here is the second point. Okay. And so I can go ahead and move this down. And so let me go ahead and move this to slice 440. Okay. or you can use your mouse wheel if you have it. Okay, and once again, I'm going to locate the center of the vessel here. And I'm going to go ahead and click add. Okay. Right, so now we have 3 points in our path. And so we can see here we have our first point up here, our second point, and our third point. And we go down by another 20. And so when we go down to slice 420 here, okay. As a coincidence, I didn't mean to do 420. Okay. And so at slice 420, I place another point, and you can see here that our path is growing, right? And so this path is going to go down the vessel, right? And so you're going to keep doing this, okay? And so you're going to go down, and so you can maybe go down by by 20 slices, okay? So let me go down to slice 400. Cross section is moved a little bit. I'm going to click I'm going to move the crosshair to the middle of the vessel. Go and click add, okay? You don't have to go down by 20. I'm just doing by 20 just because it's regular. Normally, I just use the mouse wheel. I just scroll down a little bit until I see a different plane. But for this tutorial, you know, let's keep it uniform. Okay. All right, and so you're going to keep going. Okay. Eventually, what you're going to find is that the path is going to split. Okay. And so this blood vessel, the aorta here, eventually is going to reach a bifurcation, and then the vessel is going to split into two. And so I'm going to let you guys find that on your own. And so if you haven't started path planning yet, go ahead and start placing points down. And so just like I did earlier, go ahead and start near the top of the blood vessel. And so maybe you can start at slice 487, okay? And then start putting points down in the centers of the vessel to start building your path, okay? And remember, you can look at the 3D view right here to see how your path is going, okay? But I'm going to keep continuing, and then I'm going to go ahead and build my path until I reach the bifurcation, and then I'll go around and help people out with the path planning. Okay.
Before you do it, could you explain how to make the points smaller?
Yeah. So to make the point smaller, you can you right click on path right here, and you're going to go to point 3D size.
Okay.
And then the default I think should be 1, and then you can change that to 0.1.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And then after you change that, you might have to click on the 3D view right here to refresh the window.
All right.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned that the software itself will create the Centerline.
Yeah.
Is it going based off of what you're clicking, or is it going to actually have to read the vein and then go from there?
It's purely based on your clicking right now, and so that's why this part is really important, because this part is done completely manually. Because what you'll see, so this image data set is actually really clean, and so you can see the blood vessel really clearly here. But what you'll see for your project is that a lot of the image data is a little bit messy, and so to kind of safeguard against the noise kind of picking up some stuff, they right now it's set to manual so that the engineer or the user specifies where the blood vessels are, just to make sure you get a clean model at the end. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that means also we would have to.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the diameters we're going to do on the next step. So the diameters is the segmentation step, which we're going to do next. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And let me find the bifurcation point just so I can let you guys know where to stop for now. Sure.
Will you be giving us like clues, or I guess I'm asking they're going to be choosing what specifically, what CT scan you want.
Yep. Yep. So that's going to be the hardest part, and that's the biggest motivation why I'm having the first part of the project be a midterm project, is that it's going to be. I'd be very amazed if everyone in this class, I gave them the image data and they knew exactly what blood vessels to look for. And so you kind of need a trained eye to help you at least know where to start. And so part of this is to give time for me to meet with everyone, just to say, this is where you need to start and this is where you need to follow. So yeah, because otherwise it's really hard to know where to start these things. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm trying to understand what's going on there, and all I see is black and white.
Yeah, the getting kind of orientated with the spatial thing and kind of knowing what you're looking at is, I think, the hardest part of this. Yeah. Okay. And so if you can go down to about slice 190, that should be the last path point that you place for now. And then after 190, the path splits. And so we're going to talk about what to do when the path splits in a second. But I'll give everyone a chance to catch up. Okay. But if you're able to get down to slice 190, then your path should look something like this. Okay. All right. And so if you're having any questions, just if you want to raise your hand, I can come by and help you out. But I'll give about 5 minutes for people to kind of catch up with this. Hey, you don't have to worry about the name. It's just a flexible. Yeah. Right, sure. I just noticed those habits, so lots of yeah. Oh yeah, you can change that. And so if you right click on path or right click on the name of your path, there should be an option for point 3D. So go ahead and click that, and then change it from, I changed it to about 0. Yeah. Then you might have to click on the 3D view just to refresh. Okay.
Is like a cheated way of doing it, holding control and just clicking on the 3D file?
Oh yeah, that's I think, yeah, I forgot that shortcut exists, and so you can hold control and click on the point there too. Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot faster, especially if you have a mouse, and then you can just go pop the points down really quick.
Probably a lot less accurate.
If you have confidence in your hand accuracy, then it's fine. I have shaky hands though, so I have to do like this. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm trying to sign up for the account, but then it says it take up to 72 hours to review.
It shouldn't. You should be able to make an account.
Yeah, right. Nobody else had that. And then,
huh. That's weird. Use your school email?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just send me an email after class, and then I'll message the administrators and yeah, get them to approve it. If someone else has the installer, I mean, I can give you the installer too if you want. Then yeah. So the reason so this is a peel behind the curtain. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but the reason they have you make the accounts is so that they can take those stats and say, because this is a free software, and so the people that are paying it are basically NSF, the government agency, and so they take that user data and they go to the government and say, hey, look, a lot of people are using our software, so you should pay us more, and so that's what this is used for. But I can give you the installer. I don't have my flash drive on me, but yeah, just remind me after class. Yeah, I would put it on Canvas, but I think Canvas will ban me if I put an executable on Canvas. So yeah.
One way to find out.
Right? They're gonna think it's a virus, and then they're gonna ban my account, which is not good. Trust me, it's not a virus. I know what I'm doing. All right, so how's everyone doing? Was everyone able to get up to the bifurcation point? Okay. All right, and so if you're, and so let's go ahead and start at slice 290 or 190 here, excuse me, okay? And if you go below 190, and so if I go to, let's say 180 here, okay? You can see here that the path bifurcates, right? And so you kind of have to use your imagination a little bit. And so, you know, remember when we said when a path bifurcates, it splits into two, right? And so we go back up to 190. Right, you can see here that we have one vessel. It's already kind of starting to split because we have this kind of oval shape instead of a circle. Okay, and then when we go down just a little bit more, then that oval shape turns into two separate vessels. Okay, and so in other words, the path bifurcated. Okay, and so at this point, you know, I think people often wonder what's the best course of action. And so should you end the path here and then just make a new path that covers these two bifurcations? You could, but that's actually it's really hard to make that work. And so the convention that we recommend is that you basically follow a path all the way until the end, until you can't see it anymore. Okay, and so if a path bifurcates, you basically just choose one path and then just keep following that path down. Okay, and so you can choose either one, right? And so it's like picking your starter Pokemon. So you can either pick the left path or the right path. And so I'm going to go with the right path. But you can choose the left one too, that's fine. Okay. I get so much hate from my friends because I'm like Bulbasaur, so. Okay, and then so now that we've chosen the right path, or I've chosen the right path, I'm gonna keep following that down. Okay, so we're gonna do the same thing. So we're gonna go ahead and lower this down a bit more. Okay, so 160. Okay, and so you can see here that the blood vessel here is on the right. Remember that we chose the right path. Let me go down a little bit more. So instead of 150, 60, let's go to 150 here. Okay. Okay, and so here's where things get a little bit difficult because you know what the vessel is doing, and it's hard for you guys to tell because it's, you know, we're viewing it from these three views, but the vessel is starting to turn. Okay, and so what the vessel did was it split, and then instead of going straight down, now it's kind of curving out towards the front. Okay. And so the way I know that is if I look at the three views right here, right? And so if I look at this view, I can see that the vessel here is this kind of weird kind of amoeba shape, okay? But if I look at the same vessel in the coronal plane, so basically the frontal plane right here, okay? I can see here that it has a more circular shape. It's close, and maybe I didn't pick the right cross section, but this is actually a better viewing plane than that one. Okay, and so when your vessels start to turn, and you look at the three views like this, you should pick the one where the vessel looks the most circular as possible. So don't pick the one where the vessel is more stretched out, because then when the vessel is stretched out, it's a little bit harder to hit kind of the center of the vessel. Okay? And so in this case, because the vessel looks more circular here on the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and click on the center here. Okay. Go ahead and add that. Okay. Let me lower this down a bit more. And so let's go ahead and lower this down to, let's say 130. Okay. And so on 130 here, you can see the path is going to split again. And so I'm just going to go ahead and pick the right one, right-hand path. Okay. I'm going to click add. And I went back to the axial view because that one's the most circular. None of these are great, but the axial one is the least bad one, I guess. Okay. Let me just add one more. All right, and so if you're following along, you can stop at around slice 110 for the axial view. Okay. So let me just add one more. Okay, and so once you're done with all that, then if you go back to your main tree, okay, to your 3D view, you can view your whole path. And so your whole path should look something like this. So it should start near the top, and it should kind of make a little bit of a turn to the left, and then go straight down. And then after the path splits, you can kind of tell this is where the path splits because we have kind of a kink in the path right here. Okay, the path splits, and then we follow just one of the paths down, and then we follow it until we reach the bottom. We reach the bottom there. Okay. Right. And so basically, you know, whenever you see a vessel split like that, whenever you see a vessel bifurcate, just pick one path and then just follow it down until for as far down as you can. All right. Any questions on this? Okay. All right. And so that's our first path. And so our first path is complete. Okay. And so later on, we'll come back and add another path, but you know, just to make sure I have enough time for it, I want to show you how to do segmentations, okay? And so that's the next step. And so now that we have the cross-sectional areas, or excuse me, now that we have the paths, the next step is to draw out the cross-sectional areas, which are the segmentation part right here. Okay, and so to make a new segmentation, you're going to go to the section on the data manager here. You're going to right-click on segmentations. And then you're going to click on the option for this down here called Create Contour Group. Okay. All right, and then once you click Create Contour Group, then a new window is going to pop up where it's going to ask you to give it a name. If you don't give the segmentation a name, it's just going to use the same name as your path. And for right now, since we only have one path, it's just going to choose that name. Okay. Okay, and so you can see here the window popped up. And it's going to ask you to select what path you want to follow. Right now, we only have one path, and so we're just going to select that one path. And I'm not going to give it a name because by default, it's going to use the same name as the path, which is pretty good, which is a good convention because you want to find out or you want to see very easily which contour group or which segmentation is associated to which path that you created. Okay. Okay, and so by clicking OK, we created a new segmentation group here. Right. And so you can double click on that aorta there, right? And then after you double click that, then your 3D view here is going to change. And so now we have these three views, you know, that we can use to create the cross-sectional areas. Okay. All right. So is everyone able to create a new contour group and reach this stage right here? Okay. Not seeing any questions. So you know, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Okay, and so let's go ahead and look at the top left screen right here. Okay, and you can use the right click on your mouse or right click on your mouse pad to zoom in on this part. Right. Okay, and so what we're viewing right here is basically the view of the image data in a cross section across the path. Okay. And just like we saw for the paths, you know, we can see here that that our vessel of interest is showing up as kind of a bright spot on our image data. Okay. And so the next step is to basically draw out what the cross-sectional area will look like, you know, along this vessel. Okay. Which again, you know, I think going back to someone's question earlier, there's some research going on right now to kind of automatically detect this. But it's not in a reliable state right now. And so right now the state is to basically draw these things manually, just so that you have the most control over. Okay. All right, so we have quite a few options here that we can use to draw our cross-sectional area. Some that are more automated than the others. Okay. On the most basic level, you can use the circle option right here, and so that'll just draw a circle. And so you can set the radius of the circle. You can move the center of the circle and you can put that onto the vessel here. Okay. But the tool that I personally like to use is called threshold. Okay. And so if you highlight over threshold right here, you can view kind of the instructions. And so what the threshold does is that it basically follows your mouse and it traces out a closed path around where the bright spots in the image are, okay? And so in other words, the reason it's called threshold is that, you know, starting from kind of a center spot, it grows this, this cross-sectional shape until it reaches a point where the intensity of the image grows, okay? And so I think it's a little bit easier to kind of show you, you know, rather than kind of explain it. And so to use the threshold, you're gonna click on threshold. And so you can see here, these are all the options for the thresholding, which, you know, we're gonna leave as a default. And then you're gonna click it again, okay? And so you have to click on threshold twice until it's kind of highlighted in blue like this, okay? Then you're gonna take your mouse and then you're gonna go over to the top left image data. You're gonna left click with your mouse and then hold, okay? And then you can move the mouse up and down like that, okay? Okay. And so what it's doing by moving your mouse up and down is that it's looking for different thresholds on the image data to draw your cross-sectional area, okay? And so you can see when I move my mouse up, it's it expands the cross-section because it's looking for you know, smaller intensities. But when you move your mouse down, it kind of tightens up the circle because it's looking for smaller intensities. Okay? And so you can go ahead and play with this a little bit, but try to get a cross-section that kind of hugs the vessel as closely as possible, and where the cross-sectional shape is circular as possible. Okay. And so something like this would not be good because we have a little kind of like a nipple that's coming off. And so we don't want that. And so we want it to be as circular as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and put it like that. Okay. And then when you release the mouse, then it draws your cross-sectional shape, just like that. Okay, so was everyone able to use the thresholding tool to draw their first cross-sectional segmentation? Yeah, thresholding is pretty cool. And so the other ones, you know, they're not as cool as thresholding. And so that's the one I like to use. Okay. But with that said, you know, the kind of the weakness of thresholding is that because it's a technique that uses the image data, you know, really closely, you're kind of subjected to some of the roughness or some of the noise in the image data. And so if you look at this contour here, you know, even though we did our best to make it as smooth as possible, it's still not very smooth. And so there's kind of like some wrinkles on the outside. And so what we can do is we can actually smooth this, okay? And so after you've drawn your cross-sectional shape with threshold, you can click on this button down here called smooth, okay? And then what the smoothing is going to do is that it's automatically going to kind of smooth out any rough edges, okay? All right, and so after you click smooth, you can see that the cross-sectional shape is now, you know, a lot nicer, okay? And so it's, you know, now it's a nice kind of circular shape. Not exactly a circle, but it's circular in shape, okay? And that is our first segmentation, okay?
Because oval versus circle, which one's better? Circle?
It depends on the shape of the vessel. And so, and so you want to be as close to the vessel shape as possible.
Is that why you pick threshold over just using circle?
Yeah. Yeah, so threshold, so most vessels are kind of in between an oval and a circle, a little bit closer to circle than oval. And so threshold will give you kind of a better shape than that. Yeah. But for some cases, and depending on your project, if you have really noisy image data, you might have to do a circle because the image data is going to be so noisy that threshold is not going to work. So that's kind of why the circle exists there. So you can kind of do a little bit of adjusting on the fly. Okay, and so there's our first segmentation. And so now we're going to move down the path. And so to move down the path, you can do it one of two ways. If you have a mouse wheel like me, you can scroll down on the mouse wheel, okay? And by scrolling down the mouse wheel, you can see that this image slice is kind of moving up and down the path, right? Okay. Right, so that's one way you can do it. If you don't have a mouse wheel, you can just use this reslice plane or reslice option right here, okay? And so this reslice here is numbered from 1 to 100, okay? And so if you change this number here, so it said, give me slice 10, okay? And so that moved it down by that much, okay? All right, and so I'm gonna go ahead and place segmentations about every 5 slices, okay? So I'm gonna go down by 5. Okay, so you can see that it moved down a decent amount here. I'm gonna use my thresholding tool again. So I'm gonna click and drag here. Hello, okay, there it is, okay. All right, and so here's my cross section. I'm gonna go ahead and smooth that because it's a little bit rough, okay. Then I'm gonna move down by another 5, okay. So I'm gonna here, this is 10. I still have thresholding selected, okay. There's my cross-sectional shape. I'm going to smooth it. Okay. Then I'm going to move down by another 5. Okay, so now we're at 15. This one's going to be a little bit challenging because there is So this right here, this little little blep right here, that's a really small vessel that's kind of bifurcating off this main one. And so if you threshold in this, it's going to be really hard not to get that one. Okay. And so if you have a case like this, you can kind of abort mission. And so you can go ahead and delete this. Okay. So actually, let me go to slice 16. There we go. Okay, so we go to slice 16, then we don't have that little blep. Okay. We can make a nice circular cross section. Okay. Yeah. So you have some freedom, and so you don't have to put a segmentation every single slice. And in fact, if you do, then it actually messes up your vessel more. And so you want to make sure that there's actually a decent amount of space in between your slices, but not too much space. And so if you have too much space, then you're going to miss some details. But if there's too little space, then it becomes challenging to loft. It depends, and so it's going to depend on your vessel. And so what I tell people is that you kind of visually look at it, and it should look something like this, where you have a cross-sectional shape. And the metric I use is that if you kind of look at the diameter of your vessel here, and you kind of take that diameter, right? So here's the diameter, and you take that diameter and kind of flip it on its side like this. There should be about 1 diameter's length separating each segmentation. It doesn't have to be exact, but it's just, that's kind of a visual cue that I use for myself. Yeah. And so for smaller vessels, you can put them tighter together, but for bigger vessels, you can have them farther apart. Okay. And so for those of you that are on this part, you can go ahead and keep segmenting. Okay. And so you can go ahead and follow this down all the way down the tree. Okay. So let me do a few more, and then I will pause and answer questions if you guys are having trouble. Okay. Yep.
I'm noticing that most of the just us doing the actual. How can we actually navigate that simulation?
That is an excellent question, and right now it's kind of an open question in the research community too, because a lot of this does depend very strongly on the user, and it depends very strongly on the quality of your image data too. And so both of those, I would say, are not at a point right now where they're very reliable or consistent. And so that's definitely an open question right now. First of all, if you ask 2 people to build the same model, then they're most likely going to be different because each person has a different kind of preference for how they do these things. And then there's the question of if you have really noisy image data, what effect that has as well. And so, it's definitely an open question. And so it's not, I don't think anyone's come up with a good answer to that yet. But yeah, it's definitely something that people are asking for sure. And I think that's probably the biggest barrier right now. Barrier to having this kind of technology adopted in the hospitals, because if we're going to say that we're going to use these simulations and people's lives are going to depend on it, we need to have a better answer than it depends on the person, right? Then it has to be a lot more consistent than that. And so there's definitely a lot of research interest going into making that more consistent. Yeah.
It's not like you can stick with the code, right, and test the flow rate.
Exactly. Right. Yep. Yeah, go as far down as you can see the vessel. Yeah. And so it's going to depend on where you stopped your path. But as long as you can still see a good cross section, then just go ahead and keep going. So when you get down to the smaller vessels, you can start to see the image resolution kind of play a big effect. So yeah, it's getting pretty little dicey down here. Okay, as far down. Okay.
Did you mark your last layer?
I did not. So I stopped at 98. Yeah, because I think I saw for when I reached 100, then it was kind of really splashy, and I didn't feel comfortable putting a segmentation there. So yeah, you don't have to go all the way to the end, just as long as you can still see the vessel clearly.
Yeah. The vessel splits quite a bit.
It does. Yeah. Try to choose the one that you followed on your path. That's usually the best one. Yeah.
So you said there might be a problem if the layers are too close to each other.
Yeah.
So if there shows up problem, do I just delete the layer?
Yeah. Yeah. You can delete layers. And so to delete a layer, if there's a segmentation that you didn't like, actually there was one that I really didn't like too. You just click on the segmentation that you want. And so let's say I want to delete this one. And then there's a button on the right here for delete. You just get that one. Not too much. And so as long as you have them pretty, decently spaced like this, then you're going to be in good shape. One thing you definitely don't want to do, and the reason I deleted one earlier was I had one that was overlapping. And so what can happen sometimes, especially if your path is curving a lot, you can draw a segmentation that kind of interferes with another one. And so they kind of cross over each other. Let me see if I can find that exact one that I did earlier, actually. Here. Yeah, okay, it was this one. All right, and so let me see. That's not what I want. Get rid of this. Okay, and so, God dang it, this was 77. Okay, and so let's say, do this one actually. And so just for an example's sake, let's say that I drew a segmentation here, okay? And I drew it so big that it crossed over this segmentation right here, okay? And so basically, if you can imagine it, I would draw one that kind of inter overlaps with the other one. And so this is going to cause an error. So when you try to loft this, it's going to say that there's going to be a model error. And so basically the software is going to assume that none of your segmentations are going to overlap with each other. Yeah. So that would be a good reason why you would want to delete one as well. Okay. So how's everyone doing with the segmentations? Is everyone able to get a decent number? You don't have to go all the way to the end, but you should have enough to get a good vessel out of it. Okay. All right, everyone's good. And if not, don't worry. The first time I used SimVascular, it took me, I think, a week to get up to this point where we are now. And so, but I also had no one teaching me. I was trying to just figure everything out on my own. And so, it takes a while to kind of get used to the orientation of everything. So, don't sweat it too much. But that's why I'm recording this, so that you can go back and view it later on. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you today is how to loft segmentations together. Okay, so this is kind of the last step. And so to loft things together, we're going to go to models right here. Okay, and we're going to right click on models, and then we're going to click on the button here for create model. Okay. So after you click on create model, it's going to ask you to give it a name. We'll give it test model. Okay. You can leave the model type as polydata. That's the preferred one. Okay. Let's just go ahead and click that. Okay. And then you're going to double click on test model. And then after you click on test model, you should see the menu on the right should change. Okay. And so you should have a tab here that's called SV modeling. Okay. And so that lets you know that you're in the right place. And so once you do that, you can go ahead and click create model. Right. And then after you click create model, let me go ahead and highlight that with the pen. Okay. And so after you click create model, then this menu here is going to show up, and it's basically going to ask you which segmentations do you want to include in your model. Right. And so far we've only created one segmentation group, and so that's all that we can choose. And so we can go ahead and click on the check mark there. You can leave everything else the same. You go ahead and hit OK. Okay. And you might have to refresh your 3D window, but if you go ahead and click on that, you should be able to see your model. Right? And if you want to view it without the image data in the way, you can turn it off. And so you can go ahead and click right here, and you can uncheck this to show crosshair. Okay. And if you do that, you can see this your blood vessel, right? And so this is your first SimVascular model. And so it looks like kind of a weird snake-looking thing.
How do you get rid of the back?
Yeah, so if you're coming back to the 3D, the four views right here, I first click on this block right here to maximize it, and then there's this button up here that looks like kind of a crosshair right next to the four blocks, and then you're going to uncheck this option right here for show crosshair. And so if you uncheck that, then it'll take that away, or you can bring it back. All right. And so that's the basics of the process. And so the way SimVascular works is you're going to load in the image data, you're going to draw the path, you're going to make the segmentation, and then after you make the segmentations, then you loft together, and there's your model. Okay. Any questions on this process so far? Yeah. What does the error say? Okay. I'll check it out after. So there's one more thing I want to go over today, and then I'll go around and help troubleshoot for people. Yep. Oh, is there another question? Okay.
If there's sharp corners, is that bad?
Yes, it's usually not a good thing. So you want your model to be as smooth as possible. Right now, it might not seem like a big deal, but when we go to run the simulation, sharp corners are going to be difficult to mesh, and they often create simulation errors as well. Yeah. All right, question. So just curious, so I know how the program generates the 3D path. Yeah, so it uses a method called segmentation, or not segmentation. It uses a process called lofting. And so basically, it takes the contours for each of the segmentations that you drew, and then it connects it to it basically connects it to the closest point on the next segmentation. And so basically, if you break up this circle right here into a bunch of little points, and then you break up this circle here into a bunch of little points, then the points on this circle try to find another point on this circle, and then it draws a connection to them. Right? And so it does that for each one. Okay. And then from those points, it's able to kind of generate a solid from that. And you can kind of see it too. And so if you kind of zoom in on the model, you can see here it kind of has this kind of like almost like a weird kind of texture to it. And so these lines that you're seeing on the model are those exact points that are being connected. So this point right here is connected to, if you follow this line down, it's connected to this point right here. Okay. and so on and so forth. And so it does that for all around the contour, and then it forms the surface from that. Yeah.
Could you boundary that's good?
Can I what?
Like put a boundary on it and SolidWorks and your stuff. It doesn't like balloon out and connect.
Oh, yeah, you could. But that's mostly controlled by the segmentation. So with this algorithm, it basically ensures that it hits all the segmentations exactly. And so the way you would control that is you just make sure that your segmentations follow exactly what you want to do. Yeah. Okay, so there's one more thing I want to go over today, because it's very relevant for your projects, and that's how to create your second vessel. Okay. Okay, so let me bring this back. Okay, and so now that we've drawn this vessel right here. Okay, now the next step we want to do is we want to create the other vessels in our model, right? And so remember at a certain point when we were drawing our path split, right? And so it bifurcated at this point. Okay, and so the next thing, of course, that we want to do is we want to draw the other path. And so if we return back to the image data up here. The nice thing about lofting like this is you can kind of see with the white outline the model that you've created so far. And so this is the model here. And so I'm going to keep scrolling down. Okay. Scrolling down, and eventually it's going to split, right? Right. So I'll go ahead and do that again. Okay. So at this point, the model is still 1. And I'm going to go ahead and keep scrolling down. And as I scroll down past slice 180, you can see here that the path is splitting into 2. Okay. And so, of course, we want to model this vessel as well. And so to do that, we're going to need to make another path. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and go up to path here and create another one. Okay. And so this other path I'll call, so that other vessel is called your iliac artery. So I'll call that iliac artery. And just like we created the first path, we're going to place points on this path. Okay. And so as we place points, then the points are going to get connected, and that's going to form our other path. Okay? And so all that's good. The question that I get all the time, and for everyone that uses SimVascular first, this is a question that everyone has: where do you start this path, right? And so the other path that we created, we started from the very, very top of the image data, so basically at the very, very edge. But this vessel here is not starting from up there; it's starting from the branching point, right? And so the question is, do you start, where do you start this path from? And so for a bifurcating vessel like this, I would recommend that you start your path from a little bit before it bifurcates. Okay. And so if if we kind of follow this down, we can see that the vessel clearly bifurcates at around slice 180. Okay. And so you don't want to start it here, because if you start it here, you're going to have trouble connecting this vessel to your parent one, to the other vessel, when you go to loft it. And so what you want to do is you want to start from a point before the vessel bifurcates, okay? So you want to come up the vessel a little bit. And so for this one, I'm going to start at slice 200, okay? And so the vessel is still 1 here, okay? And so I'm going to place my first point right here. Okay? Then I'm going to come down, right? And at slice 185 here, you can see the vessel is starting to split off just a little bit, okay? And so you can see here that this little amoeba here is going to come our second vessel. And so I'm going to place the point right there, right in the middle. Okay. And I'm going to come down a bit more, and then now it's finally fully split. And so I'm going to go ahead and place the other point right here. Okay. And then I'm going to keep going. And so let me add a few more just so that you can kind of see what's going on. And I'll just do that one for now. Okay. So let me go ahead and minimize these just so you can see it. Okay. Okay. And so if you look at the two paths, okay, and I've turned off the visibility for the segmentations in the model just by unchecking them here, just so that you can view it. Okay. So let me go ahead and turn off the crosshair so you can see as well. And so if you look at these two paths, right, they should come off, very naturally from each other. And so this path on the left right here, right? So this was the original path that we drew, right? So that's the one that we did the segmentations for. This other path right here, this is the new one that I just drew for the bifurcating vessel, okay? But I actually started it up here, okay? And so whenever you're making the path for a bifurcating vessel, you always want to start it at a point, before it bifurcates. And the reason for that is, you're going to draw the segmentations for this. And when you draw the segmentations for a branching vessel like that, it should fit completely within the parent vessel, okay? Because if you start the vessel kind of out here and you start segmenting here, okay, this vessel is going to be disconnected from the parent one. And so you want to make sure that you give yourself enough space, you give yourself enough leeway, such that you can connect them, kind of make a full connection. Okay? It's okay for the segmentations of a branching vessel to be overlapping the segmentations of the parent one. That's totally fine. And so in fact, that's kind of the best way to do it. And so, if I were to start segmenting this path, let me go ahead and start segmenting here. Let me go ahead and create contour group. Okay. And so you can see here that we're going to start the segmentations from up here, and that's exactly what we want. And so let me go ahead and draw a segmentation here. Okay. I'm going to start here, but I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. So let me go ahead and smooth this out. And you can use this little tool right here to make it smaller. It's really hard to see, but at the end of this one, there's a kind of like a line. And so you can go ahead and make the segmentation bigger or smaller. Okay. So I'm just going to make it a tad smaller than what it was. And then I'm going to move on to the next point in the path, which is right here. Okay. That's a little bit tricky. I'm just doing this really quickly. You don't have to follow along. I just want to kind of show you guys how this works.
When you segmented your second path, did you segment over the original segment before it flipped?
Yes. Yeah. And so you want to do that just to make sure that the two are going to connect, because the way the software works is that it's going to, when you loft, it's going to loft your first path first, and then it's going to loft your second path. And then when it lofts the second path, it's going to look and see, does the inlet of the second path, does that fully connect with your original vessel? And if it does, then that's good. Then it can basically form your branching blood vessel from there. And so to kind of illustrate this, let me go ahead and turn this back on. Go ahead and turn both of those on. Okay. And so I cut this vessel short just because, I only segmented a few times, but you can see here that when this vessel comes off, it's kind of fully engulfed by the parent vessel right here. Okay. So this connection here is a little bit messy just because, we're almost out of time. Normally I would try to make this connector here a bit smoother, but you can see here that this vessel right here actually starts up here. Okay. Right. And so it's a little bit hard to see because the vessel is covering it. And so let me see if I can turn off the opacity. Come on. Become transparent. Okay. Anyway. Okay, and so you can see here that the starting segmentation for this branching vessel is right up here, which is kind of in the middle of the parent artery. Okay. And that's needed just to make sure that your second vessel comes off cleanly. Okay. Okay. And so any questions on this? Okay, and so that's it for the workshop. And so I'm gonna stick around for a bit just to help people out that are getting errors and stuff. But if you're able to follow along today, then that's great. But remember, this tutorial is going to be part of your midterm project, so make sure that you complete it. And so what I'm going to do next week is that I'm going to put out the I'm going to give you guys the selections of all the different types of image data that I have, and you can then choose one to do for your final project. Okay. All right, and so that's it for the tutorial. And so thank you everyone for coming today. And so I know it was a lot. Oh, question?
Is there a special way to save it?
Oh yes, saving. I always forget this. Even in Anta's class, I do forget to do this too. So to save it, you just go ahead and click on this button right here called Create Save SV Projects, and make sure you mash it. Okay, just to make sure it saves because we did a lot of work today. And so make sure you click that every now and then because it does not auto save. So you want to make sure you click save, you know, to make sure you save your work. Yeah. And so it basically saves it in the location that you created the project. Yeah. And make sure you do that too, because SimVascular, you know, this is you guys will find this out by hand and by experience. You know, this software is not nearly as polished as like SolidWorks or ANSYS. It was literally developed by like 4 starved grad students that are very underpaid, and so you know, the software kind of acts like it sometimes. And so you want to make sure that whenever you do something, click save, because the software might crash on you, you know, without any warning. So you know, make sure you're saving constantly with your work. Okay.
Show us what it looks like when it's saved.
If you go to the folder of where it's saved, and you should see the folder here, and you should see the you know, the files here. And so if you want to check that it's saved, you can check the oh, that's not good. Let's see, paths. And so you should be able to see the timestamps for the files here. And so the timestamp should be, you know, when you saved it.
When you reopen up the software, it will pop up.
So when you open up the software, you can go ahead and you go to file here and you go to open SV project, and then you just go to that folder and you open up the project from there. Yeah. All right. Oh, question?
Yeah, no ever turn this into Canvas or give it to you. We just use that format.
So we'll talk about that when we need to turn it in. So there's different file formats for the models and the paths, and so you know, I'm going to have you guys submit those separately. Okay. All right. So thank you guys for coming today. Yeah, hopefully it was you know, believe it or not, this tutorial was a lot smoother than past times that I've ran it. So this was pretty nice. So you know, definitely you know, start getting used to the software. You know, if you didn't get a chance to try it today, you know, download the software and try the tutorial at home. You know, because you know, we're going to be working with this a lot this semester. All right, so hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. I will see you guys Thursday, and have a great night. Yes. I think it's one thing.
Your pen person. No, I'll start today. We don't care because it's me and my roommate. We're just gonna do it. Oh, yeah. Every time. So if you cook rice, I'm like, oh.
What part are you doing first?
Yeah. Yeah, we're just gonna work today. I'm just gonna stand for you.
I feel like that.
But you can share a Word document.
Yeah. I think the easiest way might be on.
But do you have to work on one? Thank you, Dr. Trent. See you guys. And then the segmentation after all, that they're going to be pitching on the corner. So it's hard to space them out. I think that's what's happening. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so go ahead and go to so go to file. I'm going to create a new project. And then you go ahead and if that's what you want to do, you can do it. So that's how prevention is clicking too fast. Oh, it's so they you just start with it. Yeah, and you follow the video. Yeah, so this is part of the one that then project I had to do. This is basically the same.
Yeah, take notes.
To get rid of that. Right now, so these yeah, so this is so go back and
Is there a professor still here?
I know what it is. It looks nice.
Oh, he's still here.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem.
I'm cleaning up.
I can
Yeah,
learn it. I just wondering.
Yeah.